anything that makes sense.
Transportation in general.
Right, right. Anything that makes sense.
Okay, excellent.
So how do we move this forward?
I don't know. We can't. We have to be the advocates to move it forward. We have to make it people aware, people who have control over these assets that want to be improved, make them aware that they have to have a plan in place. They have to have something that can move on the dime to get implemented. If you, for instance, find out that you have $20 million, just to use a number, and you can do whatever you think is best to do with that $20 million, if you don't have anything ready to go, you're kind of behind the eight ball.
Well, I know the state certainly is working on projects all the time. I'm sorry, go ahead. Who was speaking?
It's me, Rudy. I just want to, I'm just wondering if that's something that can get added to, you know, a communication strategy or outreach to the different towns, adding it as a priority in order to remind towns and districts about that, about this opportunity that in case there's interest. Maybe that's one way to address that point.
Yeah, but I don't know if I understood clearly, even like an arts and culture project, a venue improvement, an upgrade to a facility, whether it's in Stamford or Greenwich or Danbury or Sherman. Is that what you're referring to, a project like that?
Well, I don't think the arts would qualify for that kind of thing, but we're talking about roads, transportation, any public asset that could use improvement, could use investment, just to be ready when the time comes, if it does come from the federal government. That's all.
So let me ask you a question. In our community, we're doing a complete assessment of our drainage in the downtown area, which obviously
that would qualify.
Needs vast improvements. Ty and Bond is doing that. Would that be something that we would be looking at and rank them in our district as to which one may be the most in need, regardless of where it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Rudy, that would be a good example. Like you could apply. You would be able to apply for EDA funds saying we're investing in our stormwater infrastructure,
right,
and make the case that's critical for your downtown to.
Right, but I would see a priority being along the sound for those communities, down like in Westport, Jim. I don't know if you have anything that is critical that may need to be done that would impact Long Island Sound. That is a major project that, you know, for Westport to bite off in any given year would be quite a bit, but if you could get grant money to help.
Maybe the struggle some of us are having in wrapping our heads around Al's idea here is, you know, town by town, yeah, they're infrastructure projects, all kinds of infrastructure projects, but and many of those through the COG, we get funding from the state or wherever the actual source may be. This sounds like a bigger idea, I guess, is what I'm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that requires some discussion, certainly beyond just this group, of if there are 5 infrastructure projects we could do that didn't just stop at the town line or something like that, and to take what Rudy was suggesting, something that talks about sea rise, ocean level rising along Long Island Sound that protects shoreline communities, whatever, at least valuable infrastructure. You know, what seemed a good idea to locate the sewage plant right down there by the Sound 75 years ago isn't such a good idea now, that kind of thing. How do you protect that kind of thing? I mean, I could see that, but again, it just maybe doesn't end just because there's the border there and the taxes on the other side of that line go to somebody else. So, yeah, I'm I don't know that we have that set of projects. I agree. If anything that's shovel ready, it's got a far higher chance of getting funded than. Could you give us some money to do the study that would allow us to figure out what it is we'd like to ask you for more money for?
I see, Jim, I see 4 steps in this. First, communicate to the region, that this is something that might come down the pike and might benefit them. Number 2, to identify projects and rank those projects. And then 4th, make sure that they're shovel ready if that money does come through.
I keep going back to broadband. I don't know why, but I think that's something that we can all benefit from in this entire region. And if we could get a study going to look at our area, being a bedroom community to New York and taking advantage of our locations in terms of asking for the funding to, at a minimum, do a study to see what it would cost to get it into the entire region, rather than depending on the private sector to follow their financial models and go into the high density areas and where their highest profit is, with a reluctance to go out into the suburbs and rural areas. We need to look at it as a whole. I don't know if that type of a infrastructure project might be something that would benefit everyone versus an individual infrastructure project like a road or I don't know, rebuild of a waterway, et cetera.
Rudy, that could be certainly an infrastructure situation. I don't see why it wouldn't be. And maybe it's on the top of the list.
Yeah.
But there should be some sort of ranking that we would feel important to pursue.
I know go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think Rudy is headed on the right direction. I think we have to take a look at broadband as an infrastructure project and tie it with what the benefit to the largest area or contingent area of our COG is. And I think if we start looking at the state right-of-way for the proposed Super 7 as a corridor that we could use for resiliency improvements to the shoreline communities, as well as putting infrastructure in place from a broadband perspective, put those planning documents together and then start developing shovel-ready projects where we could get broadband to our rural and more outlying communities, then I think we're on the right track to addressing the issue. The biggest issue for broadband, as Rudy has mentioned, it's the private sector is not willing to go to low density areas. So we need to be clever on how we can get the fiber backhaul to those areas so that we can start actually achieving some of the deployment in the areas that the private sector is just never going to operate in. And it's either land that we have that in partnership with the state, or it's right of way that we currently have, whether it's state or municipally owned.
We have a lot of telecom companies located right here in our region, and why we are not talking to them about a 3P, I don't know, where we could have them provide a backbone and we extend through grant monies out into the more suburban urban areas, some kind of a partnership. But
I think we have to take a leadership role in that, and having those key decision makers, particularly the regional players in the telecom industry, have a seat at the table with us and think of it as a regional effort. I know that the historic way of doing things is they are looking out for their own self-interest, and they're working at the municipal level to get their permits to build out their networks. But we really need to take a more leadership role in bringing them to the table and say, no, we need to solve this in areas that are just not going to be served by you because of the density issue. And yet it's a priority for us. And so therefore, let's all work together to figure it out. And it's been done in other states. So we certainly could be doing this.
Can we, Mike, move forward in this somehow? In terms of taking action rather than just discussing it as
Sure
a
thing.
possible project that we can form a subcommittee, maybe to begin focusing on this and taking a look at it. At least the conversations get started. To sit back and wait for everyone else to make a move is painstakingly slow. It really is.
I hear you.
I mean,
I
we've
hear
been
you,
talking
Rudy.
about this for a while, and it's something that would not only benefit the business community without a doubt, but it would also benefit education and the general public as a whole. There are really no losers in this.
Right.
And
Okay.
I see Tracy is here, and I don't know if there'd be any pushback in terms of the municipal gain issue that we potentially could use, Tracy, but that is something that we can bring to the table. And I know Commissioner Gillette, I asked her specifically if she would support an effort, and she said absolutely. Pura would be behind it to assist in expanding the broadband in our communities. And when you look at it individually, as we have, let's say, I think it was $20,000 to do a study for Ridgefield due to the terrain and topography and above ground, below ground, et cetera. But it would give us a final product. If we could do something like that on a more regional level or break it down into phases, et cetera, we need to get the ball moving. And as Harold said, any kind of a project is going to be years to see it come into reality. So why wait starting? Let's get the ball rolling now.
Okay, I have two responses for you, Rudy. The first one regarding the broadband project.
Yep.
So Francis mentioned that we have requested to get funding to do that kind of work. So that's kind of in the pipeline already. So that's good. The second aspect is kind of referring to Hal's comment about having the region wake up, and also Lisa talking about doing some outreach. So this is what I had in mind, and it's actually going to tie into the workshop if we get to that. But the idea is that Westcott can do we do outreach already. We send out grant applications, there's some grant opportunities. The EDA program has that funding opportunity for these different state agencies, for towns, so for towns to be aware of these projects so they could develop, to make that argument that you want to be ready when funding becomes available. You should invest in plans. We can encourage towns, nonprofits, and state agencies to invest in plans. We can make them aware of this EDA funding, which they're not currently leveraging much at all. And that's something I was planning to do on a Westcott level, sending out that kind of outreach of these programs, explaining these programs, having a website that breaks down the programs, because it's not super easy, but it's not all that complicated either. They're grants and you apply for them. So that's kind of the plan that we have. It's outreach. We're gonna be sending it out, but I don't know who to send it out to. We know towns, we know state agencies, but there's other groups that we might not necessarily be thinking about too. Or if there's projects that we're not even thinking about, maybe WCD has ideas about folks you can reach out to.
Michael, it's Rob Malazzi. I'll just ask you a quick question. So a few months ago, you sent out a similar, very proactive message regarding brownfields, correct?
Yes.
So that's what you envision doing, right? I mean, is that the type of template that you would use, change the words, do whatever, but I think that's what you're talking about, correct?
That's right. It's more outreach,
Great.
more like that, but it'd probably be more heavy-handed.
Okay.
You could say we're looking for, so that really expresses the benefits and what could be lost if action's not really taken. We could talk about, what we might miss out on as a region.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
So
Any other
where are we
comments or
going?
questions?
You're going to be sending something out? Is that the
Yes,
complete-
I'll be advertising. So that's the action. I'll be advertising the EDA grant opportunities to state agencies, municipalities, and other entities that we identify as good contacts to share with.
Okay.
All right.
I think as a group, personally speaking, I want to sink my head into something, my hands into something that's more exciting and we can get going on it. I don't know. I'm anxious. We have a lot of meetings to attend. We all do. And I want to see more action, more aggressive action. Excuse me. That's my 2 cents.
All right.
Well, Mike, before you move off of that, I'm sensing that at the very least, can a subgroup be formed to be able to at least start a conversation about next steps and how best to help move this along, and come up with some, just to talk about it more. That's what I'm sensing, and it seems like it would feel like it's just continuing to go at the pace that it's going if we don't make some kind of decision about that today.
Understood. Yeah, we the WCEDD, we could certainly create a subgroup to do that, and that's definitely doable. So I guess I'm not sure what the next steps would be. Probably a motion or something like that, but I'm not.
Well,
up to the chair.
what Lisa is talking about right now, Harold, in the infrastructure, I know this wouldn't qualify, but under EDA funds, aside from infrastructure, a lot of your 501s are hurting badly right now, and questionable as to whether they'll continue, especially if this COVID situation continues like it's expected to, probably into the summer before the vaccinations are done, if then. How can we help them, many of these venues, and to prevent them from closing? That's a huge economic hit to us. And I'll speak selfishly, if we lose the Playhouse here, which is a music venue, if we lose ACT of Connecticut, a new theater that opened, that's a tremendous blow to all of the restaurants in our community. And we have quite a few of them right now. It's tough sledding as it is already for these people, whether they're going to stay open or not. If the entertainment side of our economic development, the arts and culture, I'll call it, have trouble, regardless if it's music or acting or some of the museums we have, we're going to suffer those consequences. There's no question about it. And it's going to be a long time getting them back. So how do we move forward with EDA funding for that component? Do we do it on an individual basis, town by town, when you send your letter out? Do we respond? We need, $122,000 for Project A to help take care of things to keep this entity going. Is that realistic? Is that a viable option under the EDA funding?
I believe it is. So if you could have the nonprofit apply, you could have the municipality apply on behalf of a number of arts groups. You could have them apply as a collective group. You could have the WCEDD apply. So they could put a product together like that. Yeah, that'd be possible.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Mike, what I would recommend is, sorry, go on, Lisa.
Go ahead, Francis.
Oh, I was going to say, we're talking about a variety of different opportunities. There's the $400,000 we anticipate getting in the near future, which is not really competitive. And obviously broadband's a concern. And programming those funds is, it's imminent. There is the rolling applications for the programs you showed on the slide, Mike, Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance, which we have not historically been applying to, and we should get applications into the pipeline. Of course, we need a project and matching funds for that. Then there are the kind of things that don't fall under both of those that are an immediate need due to the impacts of COVID. And then there's the longer term stuff, potentially for a future relief bill. We may see like an ARA 2.0. If you recall 11 years ago with ARA, we weren't really prepared, and we ended up just accelerating a lot of projects that were already in the pipeline that didn't necessarily have the largest economic impact. It was just move up maintenance projects. It wasn't new capacity, that type of project. So I think we have a number of different slots we have to fit projects and concepts into. And perhaps we should send out an email after this call and say, if you want to serve on a subcommittee, please reply to us. And here's what we're actually looking for. So we can bring some order to the discussion.
Good idea. Thanks,
Excellent.
Francis.
Well, I have a question about what you just laid out, Francis, and sort of tied back to what Rudy brought up. Is there an opportunity, a way for support to the arts and cultural sector can fall into in any one of those areas that you outlined?
Yes, it can fall into multiple of them, probably in different ways. But I think we can have that conversation. I think we need to send out an email to all of you laying out these more or less 4 different options and explaining it. And then I think we'll have more to sink our teeth into and actually get more concrete about what we can do.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, a follow-up question to that is, and this is just a general question from me and my understanding of these EDA opportunities. Are projects that get submitted, what is the filter? I mean, do we, are they all reviewed on their, on the face of them by themselves? Or is part of the thinking, which projects can be developed into something that will benefit the region? Just curious as to, how this is approached.
The decisions are made by EDA. Of course, projects should be consistent with the CEDS, and EDA probably will consider any ranking or prioritization we give. But EDA's primary criterion for evaluation of projects is job retention and creation.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but everything submitted to EDA is in competition, but it's in competition nationwide. So if we had too many projects, that would be a problem I would like to have.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
All right. I just wanted to share one last item. Then I'd be all kind of wrapped up with what we had coming down the pipeline. I have a schedule to show. Let's see here. All right. I don't even know if this is readable. I have a very big monitor, so I can see it.
Okay.
But we have some activities coming up, and just to talk about how this works. In 2021, we're going to be applying for the next CEDS update, and then that will probably take about a year to develop the new CEDS update. So that we can expect that in 2021, and then of course there's and then in 2022 we're expecting that partnership grant to come in, to be invited into that. So that's it for the schedule. I just want to showcase that.
Okay.
All right. Oh, and here's a list of the WestCog projects that we have applied to prior. We didn't get funding for. We applied to in different venues. So, gosh, this is a brutal slide with a lot of text. I'll just go through it with some summary for you. There was a project for doing it. It's listed right in the CEDS. It was a study on looking at the industry needs and the higher education. How well do they match in our region? There was a study request for that. So we actually went and got funding. We applied to get funding for that. It wasn't granted.
When was that?
COVID struck. What's that?
When was that?
That was back, it was right before, it was in December of 2019. Because it was right before
Yes, but
found out they weren't going to get the funds
Mike,
out.
Sorry to interrupt. That funding was actually state funding, not EDA funding. We've never submitted the first 3 projects to EDA. That went to the Regional Performance Incentive Program at the state.
Right, yeah, that's a very good point. These are not projects that are funded by the, these first 3 are not EDA projects.
I know that a lot of the AI, smaller businesses, are lacking the necessary education component to be competitive here. One company in Richfield actually opened up an office in Austin, Texas, because University of Texas is turning out the data scientists and the software engineers necessary for AI development. If we could do that, and I know we've talked about it in this group before, in the Stanford UConn branch, to begin attracting new companies here, to have that human resource available for them, that education right here where people live, grow up, and want to stay. They're familiar with their surroundings. Why can't we submit that now to the EDA?
I got it logged.
Okay.
And maybe in the subgroups we start creating that list of projects that we'd recommend, and maybe we can contact the folks we think who should apply. If we feel like the UConn branch should apply, we can say, hey, we think it's a good opportunity for you. Have that.
Don't we have a representative from UConn on this group? We used to.
Yeah, he has not been able to make previous meetings, but he does get the emails and follows along. So
thank you. I just have to say I have a 2 o'clock that I have to make, so
okay.
I may jump off early if you're still going.
Understood. Thank you.
Likewise for me.
Yep. All right. So that was one project. We had some others that we applied for. There's a tourism study about tourism and marketing in our region. That was another study that was requested directly in the CEDS. We applied for that through state funding. And then we were going to do an agricultural viability study. We kind of look at what type of agriculture you could do in a district like ours. It'd be certainly different. And so there's a study to kind of look at what opportunities lie there. And then Francis talked about that high-speed broadband project through the CARES Act funds, if we were to get that. Another project that was listed on there is electric generation and having it be, have a way to distribute it across our region effectively. And then the last one was a tourism outdoor activity clearinghouse. We currently have access to a lot of trail data, and so we're developing trail data, and we think that would be a good opportunity to bring tourism in the region. So those are some projects that have been applied for. And if we had a subcommittee, we could start developing some more, and we could do that outreach to see if we can get folks to start applying for funds from the EDA, see if we can get some activity in our region. And so that kind of concludes our presentation. The next item on the agenda, I think we're actually going to skip because we're kind of, let's see. Yeah, so that concludes the presentation. Sorry, I got a lot going on here. What was the next item on the agenda?
The grant funding workshop.
Yeah, the workshop.
Yes.
Like Rudy, I have a 2 o'clock that relates to a.
Okay, Jim, thank you.
I need to resolve as well.
I hear you. Thank you.
No worries. It's actually quite adaptable.
It's crazy for a lot of us due to COVID. I mean, the meetings and the vaccination, it's incredible what's going on. So the grant funding workshop.
Yeah, my recommendation is that we don't have to do this activity. We had some great discussion previously today that kind of covered a lot of the topics I was going to raise, such as who do we do outreach for? Lisa, you mentioned that idea of having a subcommittee. I think that'd be a great venue to kind of hash out the questions I was going to ask in this workshop. So
that was my thought, Michael, as we were talking. The subcommittee suggestion was a great one, and that sort of addressed what this next topic was.
Right. So we're not doing the workshop, but the idea was we were going to generate ideas in small working groups. But
long-term recovery.
Yes, now moving to long-term recovery. Thank you, Rudy. So I know we've shared this before, but there are emergency management regions in Connecticut, in different districts. The WCEDD district actually touches 2 of them. So we're involved in 2 separate emergency response groups, and they have what's called a long-term recovery emergency service function. They're trying to figure out what are the unmet needs in the state at various levels, regional levels and local levels. So are people getting food? Why aren't businesses staying open? Is a state governor mandate preventing a business from operating? And they collect that kind of information. They identify what all these unmet needs are. And so they can have a list for the state, so the state can be ready when funding becomes available. They can start administering a strategy and a plan to get funding to where it needs to go.
Right.
So that's what it is. And what I'm sharing with you is that, okay, if you feel like there's an unmet need in response to COVID, you can send that to me or to Todd, and we can collect that information, because you folks represent a matter of economic matters. The municipalities have their own way of acquiring that information. But for the other members of the WCEDD, if you feel like, hey, there's something that the state could do, or there's a gap here that's preventing us from recovering to where we were due to COVID, you can send your thoughts to your recommendations to me or Todd. And so that's what I wanted to share.
Mike, is there any reason why this group can't get the consolidated list of unmet needs that got consolidated by Region 5?
No, they certainly can. No,
I think that might be,
no
it might be interesting for everybody to see that. And all the different subcommittees.
Yeah, I can provide it for Region 5 and for Region 1. And provide a little write-up about what it is.
And that
That
way,
would be very, I agree with Lisa. That'd be very helpful. Just to give us a sense of, what, at least at those levels, what do they think unmet needs are? I was thinking I could use about 25,000 doses of the vaccine, but probably not what you had in mind.
Be a long line for that, Jim. Anything else, Mike?
That's it for that update. Yep.
Any other comments from anyone? Anything we want to do for the next meeting? Any ideas, thoughts, concerns? If not, thank you all very much. We'll look forward to the email for the subcommittee. How many members do we want? 3, 5, 10, 2? What are we thinking of, 5?
I think anyone who's interested.
Okay. So look out for the email.
all right, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Great day.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.